I've seen a lot of young people murdered. You know, I've lost a lot of kids. I've seen mums cry, banging on the coffin saying, you know what, I want you back. I don't need to ever worry about my passion bucket running low. I've seen so much pain to really keep this running. I grew up in Park Lane Estate in Barking. The culture of the environment was crime. How do you become successful? How do you look good? How do you get nice clothes? Through crime. In the hood, you don't have access to business leaders, sports stars. And as a young person, getting picked up from an older guy in a Range Rover, that was inspiring. It's easy to submit to the majority influence in your life. I had my moment, I had my transitional moment. I was empty, I was an empty soul. One day, I got arrested. They raided my house 5 o'clock in the morning. And I remember my mum, she was just really devastated. She was depressed over my behavior. Ever since that day, my mum's been praying for me. One of the things I wanted to do was lose weight. So I started boxing, I went down to the gym. But this time I'm picking up with a new mindset. I'm more focused, I'm more dedicated. 2 years after, I competed for the British Boxing Championships. And I was on the back page of the newspapers for winning gold. And then the front page of the same newspapers was 4 of my friends. They got life in prison for murder. And that was my moment where I just realized, you know what, wow. Like, I got saved from this. That could have been me. That could have been me. Going through my own journey of transformation and seeing where I've come from, I wanted to figure out how can I create some sort of like enterprise that can actually challenge the issue of kids getting involved in gang crime. BoxUp was actually my dissertation. Right here was my dissertation that I'd done about 11 years ago at university. What happens when passion meets purpose? And my passion was boxing, but my purpose was getting kids off the streets and out of gangs. And I came up with the conclusion, P plus P equals M. So purpose plus passion equals meaning. The first BoxUp session was, it was in the community centre in Barking, Ripple Centre, 5th of August 2013. I was nervous, I'm thinking, are people gonna come, are people gonna come? And then the first kid came through and the second kid came through, and before you know it, there was about 100 kids in the room. What surprised me wasn't that people just came out for it and people supported it. What surprised me was that people needed it. I look back at that first session and I'm reminded of all the young people that engaged, the smiles. It's emotional when I look back as well, because there's also people in that first session that came that are not here today that got murdered. You know, there are young people there's a few young people in that first session that got murdered. You know, one young person that's very close to me as well, like he was one of the first young kids to come box up, was a kid called Lyndon Davis. You know, and I was very close with him, and yeah. And he was one of the first people to walk through the doors of BoxUp. But there are some that are here today and they are doing really well. This, like, winning the Mayor of London Awards, like, back in 2012, 13, was special because I remember I was on the front page of the newspapers and my headmaster, you know, I actually got told I can never come back to my school again, you know, and that was the last that my head teacher had seen of me, you know, and then he picks up the newspaper and he sees that, right, Stephen's won the Mayor of London Awards. And he contacted me and he asked me to come back to school and run the behaviour programme. And based on this, like, this was what really kind of got BoxUp out there and really kind of secured our credibility. And the money I received from that contract, I ended up paying for the community centre for the whole year. And then from there, BoxUp was full time. The 3 things that boxing gave me, you know, that was life changing, was confidence, purpose, and identity. And those are the 3 things that we try to give young people at BoxUp as well. We try to give young people a strong sense of confidence. You know, we try to give young people a conviction of purpose. And we want everyone to feel a sense of identity, because when you grow up in these estates, you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're from, and you kind of lose your identity through the madness. So giving a strong sense of identity is something that really allows one to feel valued. I was a kid that got kicked out of school. I was a kid that, was involved in like crime and making money. I was a kid that got arrested so many times, made my parents stressed out. I never thought one day my university would approach me and give me an honorary doctorate. So now my name is Dr. Stephen. I think that's something that is not accessible. It's not common where I'm from. I received the British Empire Medal from the Queen, our late Queen. These things are not common where I'm from, and one of the things that I'm passionate about at BoxUp is trying to make these things common. And that's what BoxUp's about. It's not about my story and say, you know what, Stephen, you've done well. No, how can I translate that so other young people can do well? It's about creating an environment where everyone's winning. Creating an environment where everyone understands that winning is accessible. I remember those times we couldn't even afford a community centre rent. Before, in the community centres, when we used to train in the community centres, we just used to punch air. We had no bags, we just punch in air, we had no skip ropes, we had nothing. Now we have an opportunity to have gyms, have the resources, the facilities where people can actually develop their talent and have a proper talent pathway where they're no longer just punching air, they're no longer boxing in the council state, but now they're boxing in a professional gym. We get world champions come here and train. We've also developed the model, so it's not just boxing that we do now. We've got 5 pillars that define what we do. So boxing, music, enterprise, careers, education. We've opened up music studios. We've opened up educational sites. We've got a school. For kids that have been kicked out of school, we have a place for them to get educated. And it's just a real fortunate position where we're able to really give back to the community in a way that is aspirational. The same problems that I went through are the same problems that a lot of young people across the world go through, where they're trying to find purpose, they're trying to find identity, but they end up finding it in the wrong places. And there's going to come a point where you want to change. But who do you talk to when you want to change? And that's what BoxUp Crime is about. So I don't ever look at my past and say, I wish I went another way. I know God allowed me to go that way so that my mess becomes a message. We've worked with thousands of young kids. We've seen thousands of kids come off the streets and out of gangs. We've seen so many young people discover a true sense of purpose and identity. Every community that is suffering from poverty, every community that's suffering from crime, I can see a world where there's a BoxUp gym there and a young person can walk through and get support, get advice, get direction. Let's not see a world where young people lose. Let's see a world where young people win.